how to go about discussing Nier, because it is quite an anomaly in itself. This game is so unique, and if you feel like you're picking this game up and it's just going to be like every other kind of RPG, then you're totally mistaken. The structure of this game, the way it tells its story, is very complicated. Once you play through multiple endings, you start to see the big picture, although I feel like more research is required. If you have come from not playing Nier, as I have, we played this game first, and I haven't played the original Nier, you are left out of the loop a little bit of some of the details as to what's going on, but honestly, it kind of just makes me want to go back and play Nier a little bit just to see what happens, so maybe that's a good thing. I think this is a really good game, but I didn't have a lot of enjoyment playing all of it. The first time I heard of Nier Automata was a review I actually heard on YouTube, and it was about 3 or 4 years ago. I had no idea about the game. I've never played or looked into the game since watching the review, but I did end up watching it. It was like a video essay, and the person who reviewed it spoke very highly of the game. They had really, really good things to say about it. So I came into this game with high expectations. A lot of people in my community had really positive things to say about Nier. Like you guys said, please play Nier. It's one of my favourite games. A lot of my chat said this ranks highly in their favourite games of all time. And I'm glad that we done it. First of all, I'm glad that we tried this game because it's such an unusual game and it's such a nice game to add to, you know, your portfolio as a gamer if you really want to get pedantic about it, right? It's a nice game to have in your backlog of games so that you can reference it and compare it to other games, I feel, and also just to enjoy it in and of itself. So, in terms of how this game looks and feels, I feel like this game is a weird mashup of like Final Fantasy 13 meets Code Vein, perhaps. This game is a very grey looking game because of obviously the nature of it. The actual combat itself felt very fluid, at least when you're playing as 2B in the beginning. I love the stats in the game, the actual menus of the game in terms of like building up your stats, navigating through your stats, changing your swords, all that stuff is really, really clean. So in terms of when you're managing the RPG aspects, it feels good to play this game. I feel like there's a bunch of weapon diversity, a bunch of drone upgrades, although admittedly I didn't really look too much into the different ones. I was too busy kind of just enjoying the ride rather than looking too much into the other options, but it was nice to know that they were there. And it's also nice for people who are doing subsequent playthroughs or just going back and playing it from the start. You can try new stuff and there's a lot of replayability there, so you get good value for money, which is awesome. The combat, although it was kind of fluid and the open world was nice to navigate with this kind of ultra mobile android who can jump about, backflip, sprint, dive off, you know, you can drone hang when you're leaving high altitudes and stuff. I love all that. The actual combat itself, though, did get a bit samey. I found the whole game is filled with you fighting almost the same enemies for most of it. There's obviously different enemies and new enemies that are added as you level up and progress through, and new encounters appear. But you are going to be doing a lot of hacking and slashing for the majority of this game, and if you don't enjoy that, then, you know, I can understand why some people might get a little bit turned off. There is obviously a wide variety to the combat, though. It's not just a third-person over-the-shoulder RPG. You've obviously got your side-scroller parts and your bullet storm parts, and then later on you've got your hacking aspects. When I looked at these, you know, prior to just coming into the game, I think one of my friends Let's Played it once, and I saw kind of a little tiny glimpse of what Nier was like. I knew that the combat, or you know, the gameplay of this game shifts almost in a way that I've never seen any other game shift ever. It does kind of keep things a little bit fresher, and I kind of appreciate that. I never thought I was going to like the scrolly bits where you're kind of in your spaceship shooting, but sometimes it was nice to just do those bits. If you spend a long time playing RPGs and you do all your side quests, sometimes you can get a bit lost in it and get a little bit like, oh my god, I've been playing this game for 6 hours, and I've been doing fetch quests, or I've been killing the same enemies, and I'm like, oh, what am I doing? So when a Bulletstorm segment comes along, or for example, you go into the forest and you go into the castle, and then you've got that whole area inside the castle that is just a 2D scroller almost. It's quite a nice change up for me. Some people might disagree with that. That's some people were telling me, you know, early on, oh, I didn't really like the hacking part. I can understand that gets very repetitive, especially when you start going for multiple endings. So, you know, you could maybe play ending A, play ending B, and then stop there, and you're probably happy with Nier. But if you're someone who loves the game and wants to dig deeper and get the, you know, the true value of what's going on with the story and try and get all the angles, when you get to ending C and D, you are pretty exhausted with some of the combat. I was exhausted. I was fatigued. A lot of that is us playing the game in a short amount of time. I always disclose this when we're streaming this game. We're playing it for like 7-8 hours, sometimes 9 hours. in a row. And so doing the same stuff over and over and over again, you really understand, like, okay, this is what we're doing in this game. This is what Nier Automata is. This is the combat. And again, it feels good if you do it in little chunks. If you're playing it in one sitting, you might get a bit burnt out. So be aware of that, for sure. I do like that when you're playing through the second, third, and fourth campaigns, you do start to get extra information. So it does make it feel like, you know, even though you're doing the same segments, you are starting to understand a lot more about what's going on, you know. I feel like playthrough A is just your generic hack and slash RPG. You're just killing these enemies because you need to get through the game. You need to beat this enemy to get past. Whereas when you go into the 9S playthrough, you suddenly start to understand what's going on in the enemy's head. You start to understand why these enemies are attacking you. You start to find out why he's there, or who's this and what's that. And it's kind of cool to see those jigsaw pieces come in, which is nice. If you've got the patience for it, it's nice. There is a really thick sense of lore built up, and you can tell it when they made this game. They were obviously very passionate about it. And it's up to you as a player to determine whether you want to invest in that lore and totally soak it up. And if you do enjoy it, you're going to have an absolute field day. But if you don't buy into it and you're just trying to get through it, which I know a lot of people will, and I know a lot of people will be trying to do that, then it might get sluggish. And I think a lot of these players who feel that way might get to the end of this game and think, I don't understand the hype. I can totally understand if some people said that to me. It really does come down to whether you buy into the lore and the story and you're enjoying the ride. So for the most part, that's a lot of the good stuff that I enjoyed in Nier. Again, I think it's a very innovative game. I think that they've tried a bunch of new stuff with this game, and for the most part, in terms of performance and things like that, it runs pretty smoothly. It does okay, especially on the old-fashioned PS4 console. So don't worry about like the game lagging balls or anything. There was only a couple of times where our frame rate kind of dipped. But that was all the good stuff I think I enjoyed about it. In terms of some of the negatives, because I got to mention these, and then really I feel like if you're about to listen to these and you've not played the game yet, or you've not decided if the game's for you yet or whatever, then you should try and, you know, if you're in the middle, definitely pick the game up and give it a go anyway. So a couple of things I've got to talk about, and these are minor kind of gripes. I do feel like, first of all, this gameplay did feel a lot repetitive for me personally. Again, we were doing it in big chunks. Not just the hacking stuff, because I know a lot of people in my chat had problems with the hacking happening over and over, and towards the end of the C and D playthroughs especially, you know, you're hacking every 2 seconds and it's the same bullet minigame. Apparently there's 50-ish of the hacking puzzles in the game, but even so, you do start to feel the grind of like, holy shit man, I'm slicing through another enemy, it's another wave of robots. I feel like, personally, when it came to the end of C and D, the players who are at that stage deserve to be rewarded. And I know that the game developers are trying to give you a monumental climax where your battle is building up and building up and building up, and you're going regular fight, boss fight, regular fight, boss fight. It's the classic endgame RPG gauntlet, right? They're trying to make the ending feel important to you as a player. They're trying to make you feel like you've earned your reward. I do feel personally, although it was epic at times, I do feel like it was mega self-indulgent. Truthfully, there was a lot of just extra shit thrown at you where I think, okay, see this room of enemies, they could have just cleared that. Like, they could have just not put that fight in. They could have just not put this room in. They could have not put that room in. You know, you're fighting the same robots, the same flying drones over and over and over. I'm glad this game doesn't give you statistics on how many robots you've fucking blown up, because I know it's going to be in the tens of thousands for most players. And again, not to deliberate on the repetition gameplay, you know, not to deliberate on it too much. I do, again, back to my original point, if you feel like you're not going to enjoy the gameplay early on in this game, then be careful, because again, it is kind of the same stuff layered on top of each other over and over. So that was a bit of an issue for me. It did kind of, I was pushing through for the story at the end, let's say it like that. I was pushing through for the story. You're not really in it for the combat at the end, in my personal opinion, so maybe they could have changed that up. I don't think they needed to add a ton of new enemies, just cut down the confrontations at the end. Keep the boss fights or something, but maybe shorten the health bars, or maybe just try and speed up that aspect, right? Don't make your player, don't punish your player for getting to that point. Reward them, make them feel good. Don't make them think, you know, when they get to the boss, they should really be thinking, oh wow, I can't wait for this. Instead, I think a lot of people would have been like, Jesus, please, Lord Almighty, let it end. That's it. That's how I felt anyway. Secondly, my other problem with this game was the navigation and the map system was total shite, in my opinion. You kind of get used to it, and when you start to learn the geography of the arenas and how they connect together and where you're going. I mean, you're playing in the same areas over and over, so you do kind of start to learn where you're going. There's a couple of times in this game where I thought the map system was just totally fucking annoying. Even just a bit more help. The kind of top-down map was a bit wank at times, and I definitely feel like that could have maybe been improved for a bit more enjoyment. I don't think a lot of people are going to enjoy that aspect, but again, it's a pretty minor point. I find it very strange as a game development decision that they would put the credits after A and then after B and after C. Now, in a way, it kind of works because there's a cycle in this game where they're trying to teach you about, you know, life. Everything that's born must die. So they're giving you this constant theme of, you know, beginning and end. So maybe they just want people to kind of. I feel like this. I mean, this is just my personal opinion. I feel like it might have been better if they had just called it Chapter 1, 2, 3, and 4, and allowed you to kind of. I don't know. The reason I'm hesitating in this argument is because I'm already starting to count myself in my head. I think they're giving the player the choice of whether you want to continue playing, right? If you like the game enough, you can then go on to C and D and check out the other parts. But the fact that C and D do have like canonic parts to the story and the lore and trying to explain what's going on, it's, you know, to some people it could be considered extra lore, but to me it was like the main story of the game. And to have your credits after part 1, or, you know, play through A and then, you know, suggest, hey, thanks for playing Nier, but, you know, if you want to play more, you should keep playing. It's like, why even bother putting the credits in at that point? Why not just have it like Chapter 1, okay, here you go, and then Chapter 2, here you go, and then maybe put the credits at the end of Chapter 2, and then, I don't know, I felt like quite an unusual decision. I think the reason they've done it again is to give the player a choice and maybe to tie into the themes of the story of the game, which kind of makes sense in a way, but I feel like it's kind of risky because I think that a lot of players might actually just play to that point and then just not pick up the next part and then miss out on like a whole entire chunk of the game. Do I think this game is unique? Yes. Do I think there's a bit of creative brilliance here? Yes. Did I enjoy the creative brilliance? Did I think it was worth my time? I feel like I got a good part of the story and I was invested in it to the end. Did I feel good about slugging through a lot of the kind of slow segments? Not really. Did the payoff at the end after some of the slow segments feel worth to me? Debatable. Honestly. Truthfully. Honestly, to me. I've got a lot of time for JRPGs most of the time, but a lot of it felt... there was parts of Nier Automata that definitely felt like it was up its own arse. And I don't know. A couple of moments where, in the story kind of segments where you as 2B, for example, are starting to get infected and you're made to walk across the city. It's the scene preceding 2B's death, right? And when 2B is killed, it's a shocking moment and you think, holy shit, they've just literally slaughtered the main character or one of the main characters, and that should be a huge deal. But I mean, honestly, for me at that point, I was so tilted by the shit that the game had made me do beforehand that I was totally not in the zone to be feeling sorrowful. And I'm normally a sucker for these kind of things. Obviously, I was upset, and later on I was like, holy shit, it kind of hit me fully. But at the time, I was just raging. They did that thing where 2B starts to get her virus uploaded, and that's a cool idea, but then they made me walk across the entire fucking city. And in a way, it's another minigame. I get that. They're trying to make you get to that point from point A to point B, and if you don't, you can fail and then game over kind of thing. But then at the same time, I'm like, do players really enjoy this? I know it's not always about enjoyment, but does it need to be like that? Could you not have made her move just a little bit faster? Maybe given her more mobility, but reduce the time limit so that you could kind of get through it a little bit quicker? Or do you want the players to just limp across, getting smashed and whaled by robots and getting lost on the shitey map, and then, you know, eventually getting there, but not feeling totally amazing about it? I don't know. A couple of moments like that where I do think that, you know, Nier got a bit lost in itself. And again, I just think they were like, oh my god, everybody's going to love this. But me personally, I'm sitting here thinking, okay, this is cool. I like what you're going for. I see the vision, but was it actually fun though? That's the question I have to ask myself sometimes. Was it actually fun? Did the payoff, or did the effort, was the effort worth, and did the payoff eclipse the payoff? Did the payoff eclipse the work required? Most of the time it did, but sometimes I was like, fuck me, Nier, please just let it end. Segments where I was like, this doesn't need to be this long, etc, etc. So yeah, that's pretty much my review of Nier Automata. Super glad we played this game. Definitely would recommend, but definitely an unusual one, and certainly not for everyone. I think there's going to be a couple of people who play this and think it's total garbage and can't get into it, and that's totally fine. You do have to put in effort with this one, because it's not always a bundle of laughs, but for those who get to the end, I feel like it's rewarding, which is nice.